Hey, fourth graders, it's Mr. Peters again. Here to teach you Unit 7, Module 1, Session 4. We're going to continue our work with fractions here. We have a little game that typically in the classroom we'd all play together. We'd do two teams in this. But for today's activity, it's going to look a little bit different, but we'll still play the game together. Mr. Peters will just do all the rolling and things like that. I'll give you the opportunity to kind of pause it to think about how you would really play it in the classroom. So I encourage you to pause when I ask you to when we play the game, just to show your thinking and really work through it. And then you'll have some student book pages and home connections that you will be working on today. Okay. All right. So working with our equivalent fractions once again. Remember, equivalent comes from the word equal, and so we have equal inside there, and then fractions. So with our equivalent fractions, we're looking for fractions that are equivalent or equal to each other. They're not the same fraction, but they are ones that would equal the same amount. So 1/3, 2/6, 4/12. Here's an example that shows that all of them would be equal. So if we pretend that this is like a loaf of bread and you cut it into thirds or sixths or twelfths, if you had 1/3 or 2/6 or 4/12, or 4 slices or 2 slices or 1 slice here, those would all give you the same amount actually. It's just a different way to show it. Some of our vocabulary words that we want to make sure that we know and we should know as fourth graders: denominator. Remember, that's the bottom number on a fraction. Then the other one I'm going to jump down to right here is the numerator. That would be our top number on a fraction. And then just even the idea of a fraction. A fraction is when you have a part of something. And once again, those parts are divided into equal sections. And so if you had 5/6, it would take 6 equal parts to make your whole whatever it is, pizza, loaf of bread, whatever. But you have 5 of them. Okay, so 6 would be our denominator, 5 would be our numerator there. And remember, those are equal parts. Now, the other term, as I said, was equivalent fractions. Those are fractions that simply would equal the same amount. All right, so for our first part here today, we have this fraction bar that you guys can find this in your student book. So I want you guys to be filling it out with me. So if you haven't gotten your student book out yet, take a moment to go get that. You also probably want to go get your home connections book right away too. I'm going to give you a few tips and tricks for each of those. So if you have those handy, you can get started on it right away. So we're going to go to page 257 to our student books when you get it. Before we dive into this page, we have a few questions up here, and we want to look at these fraction bars that we have. And so the first question that we have is, which bar is divided into the most? Which one is divided into the fewest pieces? So when we look at our bars here, the most pieces, okay, would be our top bar up here. This bar, if we look, we're counting it, or we're cutting it up into, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And so to save us a little bit of time later, I'm just going to put 12ths down here for my denominator. And the one that's divided into the least number of pieces happens to be down here. That is our thirds. Okay, so you can see that we have the most pieces at the top, the least at the bottom. Now the other part though is to look, when you have the least number of pieces, like here down at our thirds, the pieces are actually the largest pieces. And when you think about that, if you're going to divide this candy bar or whatever at the top with 12 people, you would get less of it. Your piece or your section of it would be smaller. Whereas if you had the candy bar and you had to only share with 3 people, you would get a larger piece of it. Okay. Which bar is divided into the largest and smallest pieces? Okay, once again, we kind of covered that one. The smallest pieces are the 12th. It's the most pieces, but it's the smallest. And then the largest would be the thirds, even though there's the fewest number of them. Now, use the bars to show how many eighths are equal to 1/4. So we're going to look for our eighth bar. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So here is our eighth bar. And then once again, we're comparing it to fourths. So here's our fourths bar. There's 4 sections in each. Remember, you're looking for the sections, not the lines. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 areas in the box there, or on the bar. Okay. And then just to save us some time later, once again, if we look at this one, we have 6 sections. So now we want to figure out, the question that we had to answer was how many eighths are equal to 1/4. So if we came down to our 4th bar and we filled it in, and we filled in only one of those sections, that's our 1/4. And then I'm going to actually use our shade tool here for a second. If I use our shade tool and I line it up right here, here's our 1/4. When we go up to our eighths, so remember the middle one there, or the second from the top is our eighths. When we go there, 1/4 is the same as 2 of these. So to answer that question, 1/4 is equal to 2/8 right now. Okay. Now don't fill your board in yet. Sorry, I should have said that before. So if you've already done that, just hold it a little bit. I'm just trying some of the thinking here. And then when we do the activity, hopefully there's in. Use the bars to show how many 12ths are equal to 1/4, equal to 1/3, and so on. So if we go up to our 12ths, and we're going to go to our 4ths first. 1/4, we already have that filled in. And then we look up here again. How many 12ths, if we kind of do our imaginary line right here, or you can bring over the shade tool if you need to use a ruler or something, you can do that. You can see that we would shade in 1, 2, 3. So that tells us that 1/4 is equal to 3/12. Okay, so there that is for us. Same idea if we go down and we look at our 1/3. Now let me erase some of the work that we have here. And we want to see thirds this time. So 1/3. If we look at that, now this one, since it's so far away, I'm going to bring over my shade tool. 1/3 is right here. And it goes all the way up. When we look, we actually have 1, 2, 3, 4 sections right there for us. So that tells us that 1/3 is equal to 4/12. Once again, mathematicians, when you're working and you know your multiplication facts right away, you're going to see some connections between your numbers too. The idea here that 1 times 4 is 4, and 3 times 4 is 12. So using multiplication, it's a great way to change your fractions and to find equivalent fractions as well. And then we're looking at 1/6. So once again, let me clear our board here. 1/6. So I'm going to my 6th part. I'm going to fill it in once. And then I'm going to simply drag my bar. Oh, went over there really quick. 1/6. It would be 1, 2 out of 12, or 2/12. So 1/6 equals 2/12. And once again, we can look at it and notice the connection that we went from 1/6, we doubled the 1 to get to 2, or times it by 2. Doubling is timesing 2. And then same idea for the 6, we double it or times by 2 to get up to 12. Okay, so if you multiply the numerator times the number and the denominator by a number, you're going to find that equivalent fraction. So now we're going to get ready for our activity that we're going to do. I'm going to erase all my blue letters or numbers here. Okay, so with our activity, when I switch over to the next page, you're going to see that I have a spinner. And so the idea is that with the spinner, you are going to have to find equivalent fractions to what gets spun. So let me do a dual page here for us for a second. Okay, so we have these various fractions over here. Sorry, it looks like my head on the video is in the way. So when we spin the spinner over here, you and me will have to work and try to find an equivalent fraction to what we spin. Now you can't use the bar that you're spinning. So for example, when I do 3/12, if I spin that, I can't use the 12ths for my bar. Okay. Now, if you want to pause the video right now, you might get an idea, and I want you to kind of think about which fractions or which bars over here would I want to use first. Let me get rid of this. So if you think about it, when you do your spinner over here, which bar would make the most sense to use? Because the objective is to be the first person to fill up each bar. Okay. And if you fill up the bar, or not fill up each bar, use each bar once. Okay. So you only get to use each bar once. So our first spin, let me undo that. My arrow here. Sorry about that. Oh my goodness, this is gonna be silly. Sorry about that, guys. All right, spin. So I spun 1/4. So when I'm thinking about 1/4, well, we did 1/4 before, and we said that 1/4 could equal 3/12. It could also be 2/8. I can't do 1/6 because if we look at 1/4, if we drew a little line here, here's our 1/4 line. It's not going to line up to anything on the 6th, so we can't do a 6th. There's no one's going to work there. And I can't go to a 3rd because once again, if we drew our line down here, it doesn't meet up with the line on the 3rds. So it's either got to be 8th or 12th. And I'm going to save the 12th because my thought process is, if you look at the 12th, there's a lot more lines that I might be able to line up with later on. Whereas on the 8th, I have a few less. So I'm going to use the 8th. So I'm going to fill in my 8th bar here to show what 1/4 would be equal to. Okay, so I have 2/8, and that equals 1/4. Okay, so for our next spin, pretend that this would be the kid spin. All right, so if this was the kid spin, and I'll change my color to blue for the kids. And once again, we can't do 6th, and we can't do 4th, so we have to use a different one. So this time, the only one that you would have as an option would be to go all the way up to our 12th. And once again, if we kind of drew our imaginary line, we get all the way up here. Oh, why did it come in that color? Let me see then. Blue. There we go. Okay, so we have 3/12 equals 1/4. All right, let's see if we can get a different one than 1/4. Hey, 4/6. All right, so I'm trying to find something equal to 4/6. So if I look at 4/6, I'm just going to kind of make a few little marks. 1/6, 2/6, 3/6, 4/6. So I'm looking for something that lines up here. And we already used the top 2 bars, so I have to see if there's something on the bottom bars that would work. Now, when I look at 6, I can't divide 6 into something that would equal 4 with whole numbers. The other thing is it's not going to work right here. It's not going to run into it. But if I kept going, I would notice that my 4/6 could equal 2/3. So I'm going to take my black color and fill in this for Mr. Peters and the teacher team. And I'm going to write 2/3 equals, and once again we go back to our spinner, 4/6 for this one. Okay. So using these fraction bars, they're really great to show equivalent fractions. The hard part is when you have to write your own, it's going to be a challenge if you're going to try to make your own fraction bars. And I'll get to a tip for that one shortly here too. I think somebody might know the tool that I want to use. Oh, 4/6 again. So this is the kid spin. And if we look, we can't use the 6, we have to use a different one. The only one available is 4ths. So there's no way that 4/6 equals one of our 4ths there. So that would be a lost turn for the kids. Sorry about that, guys. Oh, man. 4/6 again, so that's a one that doesn't work for the teachers, too. 1/4. Okay, once again, now we'll look at our 4th bar. The only other option is our 6th. So we're really kind of stuck right now. We can't do 1/4 either. We'll do a few more, and if it doesn't, give us a different one. All right, 3/12. Ooh, this is the kid spin. So if we look at 3/12, we already saw that 3/12 equals 1/4. So right away, we can actually use the 1/4 bar to help you with that one. So for the kid spin, you guys get to fill in. There we go. So we are going to write 1/4 equals 3/12. And we're going to say we're just going to end this one on a tie right there between the students and the teachers, and move on with our video. Now, as I said, one of the tools that I want you to still make sure you're aware of is your fraction bar tool on your Bridges website. Now, mine looks a little bit different. I got to it from here, from the Bridges part. You guys have a Menominee Falls Schools part right here. So click on that. You can go to the fractions, and here's where you can build the different fractions for yourselves. You can do fractions as bars and make whatever number. If you want to use a random crazy number and you want to use like 13, you can do that. You can change it. If you want to do circles, let me just click OK here. If you want to do pies or slices like that, there's different options there. Okay, so don't forget about using those fraction bars. If you're stuck, I know being at home, you don't have the actual ones you can move around, but these are nice because you can make your own fraction bars at your Chromebooks here pretty quickly and just kind of fly through some of the work you have to do. We're going to get off our dual page here and go on with our work. So how can you compare fractions on a number line to bar examples? Well, one of the things when we look at our bar examples, we're able to line up the bars here, and you can kind of see which ones are equivalent. So right there, we can see 3/12 is equal to 2/8 and is equal to 1/4. And so with that, that's one of the similarities. When you have fractions here that line up, for example, right here, that tells you when they line up on top of each other, those fractions are all equivalent. 1/3, 2/6, and 4/12. Those fractions would all be the same. So if we had our bars and we laid them out, they would all equal the same amount on the bars. Okay, that's probably the biggest one. One of the nice things with it is that you don't need to have all the bars laid out. And you can also, with a number line like this, you can also actually see all the 12ths right there, all the 6ths above it. You can see a variety of different ones all right there. You don't need to have a huge page of just fraction bars. It's all right there on one little section. So if you haven't filled this part out yet, I'd make sure that you fill this out in your notebook, or not your notebook, but your student book from your previous assignments. I know there's part with that. Okay. So once again, you can use the fraction bars if you want on the Bridges website. You're going to color some in here. Biggest thing before you answer questions on here, shade in the fraction bars first with what you're told to do, then see which one's bigger. So 5/6 versus 2/3, figure out which bar you're going to use. Okay, this one's divided to 6, that one's divided into thirds, and then write it out. So for our first one, 5/6, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we have 2/3. Okay, fill that in. It's pretty easy with this one to see which one's bigger, 5/6 or 2/3. And then remember, you're using the greater than, less than, or equal symbol. Remember, it's always eating the larger number. If you forget which one it is, there's a few different ways that people kind of remember it. To me, when I was a kid, I always remembered, like I looked at like a crocodile, and would a crocodile want to eat a little bit or a lot? And so I always think a crocodile's eating as much as they can, so they want to face and eat the bigger number. Okay. So make sure you're filling your bars there. And then you can find the equivalent fractions and fill them in down here as well. So that's page 260. Then down here we have 261. Here you can see you have the chart up here at the top. It's filled in nicely for you. I know it can get kind of confusing. This one of the things I don't like about it is that they bounced back around. And so if you look at like 1/12, then 2/12, and so it's not all in the same row as the one that we showed you before. So just be aware of that. But it still holds true that any that line up on top of each other are equal to each other. So for this example, 2/3, 4/6, and 8/12, those would all be equal. Same, or not same, but kind of another thing to look at is if the fraction is further to the left, so let's say 2/12, and I was comparing it to 3/8, 2/12 is over here on our number line, 3/8 is over here, so 3/8 is the larger fraction. So you'll be able to use this to help with that. And that's exactly what you're going to do in your next few questions there. So it should be pretty quick. Just kind of find the fractions on the number line there. So let me get rid of that. And then you can find which one's greater or less than the other one. Use your bars here at the bottom to fill in those parts. A little bit of multiplication practice for us. And then we get to our home connection. So we have pages 133 and 134. Once again, fill in the bar carefully. You actually recognize our example right here is one that we already did, 5, 6, and 2/3. Excuse me. So fill in your fraction bars. Whichever one's larger, it's going to be the greater fraction. Same idea here. Use one of the bars to show 3/4. This is where actually using that fraction part would be really helpful, the fraction number line over here. Oops, sorry. So if I look and I find 3/4, I can see 6/8 and 9/12. So when I jump back to this problem, I need to show 3/4 on one of these. Okay, so you can see which one you might use to show that fraction. So the first thing you probably want to do is count up to see how many parts each one has. Same idea here. Count up your parts, and then you can always go back to that fraction bar that we showed you just before to help with these problems. All right. So fourth graders, that's our lesson for today. I hope that you're all staying healthy and safe. I know it's been pretty rainy outside the last few days, but hopefully you've gotten outside in the morning. The mornings have been pretty nice. Once again, we miss you guys. You guys can do all this. Hang in there, stay strong, and keep pushing yourselves to do the best work. And once again, we challenge you as the fourth grade teachers to do extra Dreambox pages or assignments as you can. And you really use those because you guys are going to come back even better and stronger next year the more that you push yourselves to get the work done. If you have any questions, please reach out to your teachers. And we miss you guys. We love you guys.